Today's lesson is going to emphasize on writing PHP in XAMPP, okay, in XAMPP localhost server, how to for us to better understand in the manner in which XAMPP then identify files in what's in its WH folder. First, I'd like to then talk about what PHP is all about. Now, when we talk about PHP, if you could remember in Model 1 lesson 2, we then talk about PHP, where we just throw light about PHP. So far, it's a scripting language for us to better understand. And today, I just want us to just create a simple PHP files for us to see how PHP files are, and for us to also know the essence of PHP language. So far, it's a scripting language for us to better understand the way in manner it is being used in hand with HTML as well as JavaScript, so far as creating a back end and a front end is concerned. How you understand this, I would just say that I'm not trying to teach you guys what PHP is all about, but just for us to better understand what PHP is before we get to the XAMPP control panel. Take it out from the way. When you talk about PHP, as we all know, is a hypertext preprocessor language. Basically, that is what PHP stands for, hypertext preprocessor language. And we say that it is a widely used open source server-side scripting language. And once about open source, as I said earlier on our previous lesson, where I talk about XAMPP is an open source local server, meaning it's free out there for you to use. You don't need to pay anything, and it is designed for web developers, more or less. It's a design for web developers to build what applications, to build how they call a system pertaining to whatever they wanted to build. And more or less, it is also embedded into HTML, which means that you can embed both PHP with HTML to create a complex system, or more or less a system that you wanted to, whatever you want to create, you can equally do that. And it is run on the server. So PHP is always run on servers. Now, once about it being run on servers, someone is kind of like confused. Say, I don't understand. What do you mean by PHP is run on servers? Now, if you could remember, when we install XAMPP, so far the configuration is concerned, we then talk about to locate that if you are trying to set up a system or deploy a system, you must also look out for the version in which the PHP that they use to deploy that or design that system, the system development cycle pertaining to the scripting language that was being used. You must consider that. Now, you cannot just double click on PHP file and then it will open, as compared to when you double click on HTML file and the file will just automatically open for you. It doesn't work like that in PHP, which we are going to demonstrate that for us to just better understand. That is why we say it's run on servers. So you have to use a server to fetch the file, and the file will be fetched. So basically, that is just that. And in addition, also it interprets its code dynamically. When I say PHP is used to interpret code dynamically, this simply means that when I say something is dynamic, let me bring that to a website. Now, there are 3 different ways of building a website. One can choose to build a website statically, means static web page. One can also build a web page or a website dynamically. Okay. One can also build a web page in a standard way, that is custom. So when you build a website dynamically, this simply means that either you have a front end and a back end controlling the website. That is the dynamic way of creating a website. So with PHP, it helps to interpret code dynamically. What I like to talk about is that mostly if you are building a website and you want to then build a particular website to have a back end and a front end, I would say PHP is the best option for you to go. Even WordPress also use PHP framework. which help to control most elements so far as what having a back end and a front end is concerned. So that is another way of what the essence of using what PHP, as is being said in module 2, module 1 lesson 2. So basically that is just that. Okay, so the next thing you could see on your screen is, as you can see there, it's about why use PHP for web development. Why developers use PHP to build their website or for web development. It's easy to learn and use. It's easy to learn and use, and it's an open source and it's free, as I said earlier on. Now, most of the time, let's assume that you want to create a website for someone or a system for someone. PHP is the best option. You don't need to buy anything. Okay, most of the codes are free. You don't need to buy, not on compared to WordPress, as you have to buy some of the plugins, and it's a whole dynamic thing. And it's a strong, you have a strong community support. When you have a strong community support, this simply means that I may say, when you indeed are struggling to better understand, you can equally find a particular platform like GitHub and ask questions, and then someone may be having problem pertaining to that, and that will also give you a support. Maybe the person will just put the problem he or she had pertaining to what you are also facing, and then give you the problem solution so far as what a support or a solution to that particular problem that you are having. So that's the main reason why people use it. And it's in addition to that, I would say that it is served as a side scripting language. Simply mean that it enables developers to work with a database. If you really want to then create, a system where you have a login access, or having a front end and a back end controlling the entire system, PHP is the best option. It helps you to connect, or one would say to interconnect or intertwine, or maybe embed a database in your website or in the system that you are building. Let's assume you are building a school fees management system for your company, or for your school, for your institution, for whoever you are building the school fees management system for. Come think of it, here the case, you want that anytime a student pay a fees, you want to have that record pertaining to the time in which the student paid the fees, the date in which the student pay a fees, and in addition also you want to generate a receipt from that system. I'm not talking about using Access or using SQL, using Excel with the help of VB, but you want to go web app. You want to build a whole web app to have a back end and a front end control. PHP is the best option for you, which helped for you to better connect your database into it. It's also a platform that supports a widely operating system, which we talked about the last time. It supports Linux, Mac OS, and Windows as well. So it's cut across. So whatever operating system you are using, PHP can respond to it. They have a couple of versions that you can download and then use. So that is the main reason why developers mostly use PHP for their web application. That we should all bear in mind. The next thing I'd like to talk about is that creating a simple PHP file. Now, someone will ask that when we are creating a simple PHP file, what are the text editors that we need? Does PHP have a specific text editor that one must use to then create his or her PHP file? The answer is no. It doesn't have a specific PHP text editor that one must use to create his or her text. No, not at all. Now, you can choose to use the Node++, and also you can also use Visual Studio Code. You can also use Atom. You can also use Sublime Text. Any text editor that you are conversant with, you can equally use that. As a matter of fact, yours is to know the thing structure. Okay, okay, concerning PHP. So when you know the scripting structure concerning PHP, then you are good to go. Now, so which means that after you finish writing your code, as you can see here, this is just a simple PHP code that I just demonstrate here. So you can say that when you are using, how do you call it, a WordPress, maybe HTML, okay, one would say this will become an open tag, this become a closing tag, kind of. But yes, and then at the end of the day, when you run the code, it's going to echo what? Hello world. So basically that is how it's going to open. Now after you finish writing your scripting language, what you must notice is that, or what you must do is that you must make sure you save the file as maybe hello.php. Now the PHP that we see here become a file extension. The PHP become a file extension. This simply means that you are creating a PHP file. Now, having said that, when we talk about file extension, what is a file extension? A file extension is an extra text at the end of a file name that describes what type of file the file is. So if indeed I save it as index, so I save the file as index.php, this means that I'm creating a PHP file. When I save it as index.html, mean I'm creating what? Hypertext markup language file. So it goes on and on and on. So when you know the architecture of PHP, you can equally use any of the text editor that you are conversant with to create your your PHP file. Now, having understood this, I'd like us to test something for us to better. Let me simply demonstrate something for us to better understand. So far as what writing PHP is concerned. Now we are going to basically just use HTML against what PHP for us to better understand what how we can equally write a scripting language. So without wasting my time, I'll go ahead and launch my text editor for us to just basically see that even if you are using Notepad++, if you are using Sublime Text, if you are using Atom, if you are using Visual Studio Code, you can equally write your PHP language pertaining to what the structure, how you understand what the scripting language. So let's demonstrate that. Okay, so having said that, this is my desktop. As you can all see my desktop. Now, as this is my desktop, what I will do again is that first I would like to go to this PC and then what create a project folder in my this PC. So for me to do that, I'll go ahead and double click on this PC. So as I double click on this PC, I'll go to my localhost. So in my localhost, what I'll do is that I'll just come to where we have my XAMPP folder, double click on it to be open. Then look through my XAMPP folder, make sure I select htdocs, which is this, double click on that. As I double click on my htdocs, this is my htdoc, which means that all the time any project you want to create, you must create it in htdoc. That is what XAMPP control is going to fetch the project from. So as I have this, I'll click on new folder to create a new folder and name that folder just text, as I just said. Okay, so text kind of text, something like that. So that is my project folder, I'm just saying. Then at the end of the day, I'll go back and minimize that, or probably I can equally close it. Then after that, I'll launch my text editor. So I'm using Sublime Text. As I told you that using PHP, you don't need to use any, there's no specific text editor used for. I can equally use Visual Studio Code, okay, to code, but I'm focusing on my Sublime Text for you to see that it's not like you have to get a Visual Studio Code before it will work. No. So now as I have this, now as I open my Sublime Text, I must make sure that I save the page, okay, onto, okay, in my my htdocs folder. So to do that, I'll click on File and then go to Save As. When I go to Save As, I should just go to my localhost and look for my XAMPP control and then go to my htdocs and then have my text. That is my project folder. Then I'll give it a name as index. So I'm going to call it index. So index.html. That is the file extension, which means I'm creating an HTML document. Look at this, and we are going to look at what the differences, how this thing works. So I'll go ahead and click on Save. Now I'm going to create a particular folder, so I'll do my doc decoration by saying my HTML. So HTML, and I'll give it a name as just text, or let's say HTML, okay, file, kind of HTML file, something like this. And in my box, in my body tag, I like to create a simple something. Let's create, I'm creating something like let me make a div container, and in that div container, let me give it a class, and the class, let me call the class as AMA. I'm just saying. So and that is just that. So AMA. Then after that, I'll come back and give another div container, and that div container, I want to give it a class also, and the class I'll give this div container is going to be text, and I want to call it, let's say, text, kind of text. Okay, I'm just saying. So after I'm done here, so here I'm going to say, I'm going to just say my, okay, let me just say something. Let's say Armstrong. Okay, let's say, so Armstrong computers, I'm just saying. So Armstrong computers, basically that is just that. Now I'm going to turn this AMA, which is a div container, into a shape. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put a cursor here and press enter, create my bring my class. Okay, so which is my style. Okay, I want to style the div container. So in my style, as I bring the style, I'm creating inline style. I'm not creating external CSS style. No, I'm creating inline what CSS. So inline CSS, one will say internal CSS, anyhow you call it, is inline. So I'll press enter here. In between my opening tag of my CSS and the closing tag of my CSS, I'll go ahead and say and call the AMA being my shape here, AMA. So I'll say AMA, so dot AMA. Okay, we'll bring my curly bracket, and then I'll go by saying the width of AMA should be 300 pixels. I'm just saying, and the height should also be, okay, let me do some square. It should also be 300 pixels. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and say, let's give it a background. So background, and let me do the background color red. I'm just saying, okay, this look good, it's okay for me. And then after that, I'll go ahead and then click on file and click on save. Now look at this. As I've saved this, now I can equally right click here and click on open in browser, which it will open, but that is not what I would like to do. You can see that it has open here, but that is not what I want to do. I want to, when I'm done and I click on file and click on save, and I come to my folder to first what my let me go to this PC and go to my XAMPP folder, and then go to my htdocs. Now in my htdocs folder, you can see I have a project name text. Okay, now when I double click on it here, you can see that it will open in my browser. So I just double click, so check it out. You can see that it is open in my browser. Okay, fine. Now as you've seen this, take note of this because I want us to learn something. Now as this has opened in my browser, now I can equally also launch my Sublime Text, launch my XAMPP control panel, and my XAMPP control panel will fetch this file also at the same time. How do we do that? So I'll close this and then open my XAMPP control panel. So as I've opened my XAMPP control panel, I'll go ahead and start my Apache and go ahead and start my SQL. Now, because I've not created any database, I don't need to start. I've not created any database, so I don't need to start my SQL. So because the whole thing is inside XAMPP, so I don't need to. There's no any database that the index have to come and fetch the file from my SQL. So I'll just maintain my Apache that I've turned on my Apache. Then after that, as I've turned on my Apache, I'll go to my browser. In my browser, I'll go ahead and say localhost. Okay, I'll just type localhost. So localhost. The moment I press enter, to display my dashboard for me. Okay, so that is that. So you can see this is my dashboard, okay, for my local host. Now pay attention. When you watch very carefully here, you can see that we created a folder. You can see that we created a folder and we named the folder known as what? Text. And in that text contained the index file in the htdocs folder. So for me to fetch this file, I have to just come and type XAMPP slash, okay, localhost slash what text, and then it will automatically fetch my index file. Let's look at that. So now as I'm here now, as I have localhost dashboard, I'll backspace this and just go ahead and say text, okay, text, and press, so localhost slash text, and press enter, and watch. You see it will display my web page for me. Okay, so as I brought the folder name here, it has automatically locates, how do you call it, the index file by opening it. So basically that is how that has been done. Now what's something, when I go to my text editor, for instance, and then in the AMA, and I say margin, when I say margin, and I say the margin should be auto, and I save that, when I come to my browser and refresh, you can see that it's going to take an effect by moving to the center, although it is running on my local host. Now take note of this. You could remember that we created an index file in the what, in the text, okay, and we went ahead and double click on it, it opens, and we went ahead and even call it from the local host, and it's open. Now you've understood this. Let's look at something again, but before that, let me put my text to the center and increase the font size for us to see, for us to write a simple HTML, or sorry, PHP code. So for me to do that, I'll go directly to my text editor, and then I'll come and call this text. Okay, so I'll go ahead and then come and call what, this text here, because it's a text, so I'm going to call it. So how am I going to call it? I'll put a cursor here, press enter, then I'll go ahead and say dot text, because that is the name I gave the Armstrong computers. Then I'll go ahead and then bring my curly bracket and then say font size, and let me make the font size, let's say 50 pixels. I'm just saying, okay, then 50 pixels. Then after making a font size 50 pixels, let me go ahead and say, let's say I can also make it margin auto, or but you can also say align item center. Let's look at that and save that. So after doing that, after we've done this, we just close that. Let's go to our browser. So now in our browser, I'll go ahead and then refresh. You can see it is big, but it has not moved to the center. Okay, now as it has not moved to the center, I can equally say align item center, or you can even say that text dash align center. Save that, refresh, and you can see it's at the center. So you can see that it is reading directly from the local host here, and everything is working perfectly. Okay, now we've understood this, let's go ahead and write some PHP and see the differences here. Just to write a simple PHP program for us to see the differences. So for me to do this, what I'll do is that I'll go ahead and then move to minimize this and close this also as well. Okay, let me click on file, new. Okay, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a new folder, and I want to call that just a PHP, just that. Okay, so I have to build a simple PHP website. Okay, so let's do that. So for me to do that, what I'll do is that I'll come directly to my XAMPP folder and come to, let's say, htdocs, and I'll create another new folder. Now that new folder, I'm going to call it let me call it text what's PHP, kind of, that's the name of the project folder I just gave it. Okay, so text.php, and I'm good to go. Then so this is it. So in this folder, which is text PHP, which is the project folder, or you can even call it PHP folder, anyhow you want to call it, you are good to go. So we are going to then save what's the PHP file here. So I'll open my Sublime Text, which I did. I'll click on File, click on Save As, and go to my XAMPP, and go to my htdocs and come to text PHP. So I double click on that, and I want to save it also as index. I'm going to save it like index.php. Then I'll go ahead and click on save. Done. So after I've done it by saving like index.php, I'll go ahead and bring my PHP declaration, just a simple PHP file. So that's PHP there, and after that I'll press enter. I need to bring my kind of like my close tag, so I'll bring my term bracket and done. So this become my PHP folder. And in normal circumstances, when you are doing your doc declaration, or maybe you start by saying PHP like this, you do not get anything. It's not like HTML. Bring the tag and bring your equal to, and go like P. You see that it has displayed. When you press enter, you see it's normal circumstances it's supposed to display with the close. It doesn't work like that. So you'll have to go directly and bring your sign, bring your angle bracket. So this become your opening tag and the closing tag. So in between there, that is where, so this become like the way the HTML become your opening tag, this become your closing tag, like the way it is in what's in HTML. So in between here, go ahead and press enter, and we are going to echo that when we open this file, you should then display something like hello Armstrong, kind of. So I'll go by saying echo by saying that, so that is string. Remember that in programming language, we talks about string, variables. These are all text. When we say something is string, meaning that is what is a text. It's accept text symbol and so on and so forth. So I'll go by saying hello. Okay, so hello Armstrong, kind of. So what appear in the parentheses, that is what the PHP is going to display. So hello Armstrong. Done. So hello Armstrong being displayed like shouting hello Armstrong, kind of. Okay, then I'll go ahead and click on file, and then go ahead and click on save file, and click on save. Now after doing this, when I come back to my folder, which is here, okay, you see here is a PHP file. Now when I double click on it here, it's not going to open. It's going to open everything in a text editor for me, like a Sublime Text. It's not going to open directly to echo. No, see what is happening. You can see that directly open it in my Visual Studio Code. You can see, unlike when we come to htdocs and double click on text, and then double click on what we have, PHP index. So far as an HTML, it's supposed to open for you directly. No, it doesn't work like that. That is why I said that we went ahead by saying that the PHP it's always run on a server. It's always run on a server to better fetch that particular file. Okay, now having understood this, I'd like us to just go ahead, and then so when we use the XAMPP control panel or the XAMPP localhost to then display our PHP file. So when we say echo, just like a QBasic simply means that prints, print hello Armstrong. Like C++, we say print hello Armstrong. So that is how the echo means. Meaning, you echo, meaning you should print what hello Armstrong. That's the meaning of echo. Don't worry, I'm not trying to teach you PHP language from scratch, which is going to be another course we'll be talking about, but just I want you to better understand how the PHP work in hand with with local servers. Okay, so have you understood this? Let's go directly and then come to our browser. So in our browser, you can see that in our browser, in the first thing what we must do to display this, we have to type out local host. Okay, so we go like local host. In the local, we bring the / and say text. Okay, so text, and we say text PHP. The moment you press enter, see what will happen. You can see here it has echo hello Armstrong. You can see there hello Armstrong. That's what it has echo. So basically, as compared to HTML where we double click and then it will open, no, it doesn't display like that in PHP. So basically that is just that. So as I just said in our slide, I then talk about that when you open, it doesn't support any special a specific text editor. You can be using Sublime Text or Visual Code. You are good to go. You can Note++, Atom. You are good to go. And writing the code, as I said all the time, this becomes like the first declaration becomes like an open tag, where I have a closing tag in between. Whatever that is in between, that is what the browser is going to display. And after you finish, you can save it anything, but make sure that you bring the file extension. Okay, you can save it as AMA, you can save it as Ajua, but make sure you bring the file extension known as .php, where I talk about file extensions and extra text at the end of a file name that describe what type of file the file is. Now you've understood this, let's go ahead and look at the next thing. Now, running the PHP file in XAMPP, as I said, as we did demonstrated, you have to move the PHP file that you created, as we created it as index.php, onto the htdocs folder. Okay, you have to put onto it onto the htdocs folder. Then after you put that in the htdocs folder, now you come back and then open your XAMPP control panel, and then you start the Apache. And remember, I told you that you shouldn't start the SQL because we did not create any database for the XAMPP to, or for the index file, or for the file to fetch the database from the SQL. That is why we did not start the SQL. So you just start your Apache and then go ahead, open your browser, and then you go to your localhost / the name that you give to the folder, and it will automatically display the browser for you to do, which is the result is going to be like hello world or hello Armstrong. So basically, this is what you must understand how using PHP is concerned. So if you have any projects folder, you have to make sure that you put that project folder in the htdocs folder. Okay, you can either delete all the content in the htdocs and paste that, it will also work for you, or you can create a subfolder and then paste that project in that folder, and anytime you wanted to launch it, you can equally go ahead and then launch this, and then the folder will then display its content for you to see. So basically that is just that. So let's assume that this is my XAMPP, my htdocs folder. In the htdocs folder, I have text again. So in the text, I created another subfolder, and then I named the folder, let's say AMA. Okay, so AMA, and then in the AMA, I've placed this folder, okay, which is the index file in the AMA, like this. Okay, so how will I go by it? Now when I go to my browser, for instance, this is the file. Okay, this is what my file is, what we did. When I refresh, it's going to display that folder known as AMA here. You see it here, you see it. So when I click on it, it's going to display the file content. Now this means that anytime you want to display that, so let's assume that you are on localhost / dashboard, just highlight on it and just go by saying text. So text, okay, text / AMA, and press enter. It's going to display it for you. So that is what you can do. You don't necessarily have to bring index. The moment you type AMA, it will automatically locate, because index file is always there with the primary, how do you call it, a source for any local host to locate and display. So let's also assume that we are doing this in let's say text, okay, text PHP, that is very one here, and I created another folder and I called that folder like let's say costs. I'm just saying like costs, okay, and then after that I pick this is the PHP file, drop it in the cost. So when I come back to, how do you call it, my browser and refresh, it's going to display the text, the PHP text, and then the folder which is known as the cost. So I'll go ahead and click and then to display. Or better still, you can equally, if you are on your dashboard, for instance, like the XAMPP dashboard, you also just highlight the dashboard, okay, and just type text, okay, text PHP /costs and press enter, and then that's so it's going to locate the PHP like hello Armstrong for you. You don't necessarily, not necessarily have to bring what if it's a subfolder in a subfolder in a subfolder. Yes, you can equally do that and it will display that for you perfectly. So therefore, having understood this, I would like to take any question. Then if there's no question, I can go ahead and then move on. And as I just said, I'll bring my lesson to an end here. That is what we mean by the PHP is running on a server. So this is where I'll bring my lesson to an end. If you have any question, you can go ahead and ask me.
Armstrong computers, we're leading the way, bringing ICT to your doorstep every day. Where vision meets excellence, we stand strong, transforming students where they belong. In the halls of knowledge, we light the spot.